Hello, so I'm basically going to be talking about today whether the preseason in the NFL should be canceled or restructured in a way that benefits everyone. So I would say right now there's two different groups within this problem. There's people that support it, support canceling and restructuring it, and then there's people who want to keep the preseason around. And so I would say, for the most part, the benefits of keeping the preseason around in terms of the people who support it, they see that there's kids that come out of college and they're not the big names coming out of college, so they need to prove themselves to those 32 teams, and a way they can do that is by working hard and getting to one of these teams early, and then you end up playing in preseason games, and then they see how you actually do against other players in the NFL. So it's a really good way of evaluating new new players in the NFL. And then the second benefit to having the preseason in the NFL is how much money it brings in, and then how well of a event it is for fans. Because the last time they had football, NFL football was the last Super Bowl. So preseason's kind of the first football of the season. Obviously, that's why it's called the preseason. And it brings in a lot of money because of that, because it's been so long since football has been around. And then the things that kind of go against, why the NFL should cancel the preseason is because of the injuries. The injuries is a big factor. We see people. Most superstars don't play in these preseason games just because of the fact that they could get hurt. But there's always the chance, you could have a second string wide receiver start a game, and then he ends up getting hurt, and then your starter who didn't play in the preseason gets hurt, he's out, and your second string player's out. So now you're down to the third. There's always that chance, kind of goes down the line of, injuries. You never know. So that's tough in that instance of, having preseason games. You're already playing, a full 18 games or 16 games in a season. So to add another four is pretty tough on these dudes' bodies. And then another thing to go against the preseason is the history of why the preseason was even invented. So it was invented in around 1934, and it was a little different than what it is today. So it was more of like an all-star game for the best collegiate football players. So it was the end of college football for these dudes, and then it was the preseason games, and then it was NFL. So um, it's a little bit different in that aspect. And another reason that the NFL started these preseason games was to kind of attract more viewers, because the NFL was not as popular as college football at the time, as well as baseball. Baseball was the big sport, so they were just trying to attract more attention towards the NFL by having these preseason games, having the best collegiate athletes playing each other, because that brought in those collegiate fans, so they could see their favorite football players. And so, going off that, that was what was originally set in place. That's why the preseason came to be. And so, fast forward about 80 something years, 80ish years to today, and it's a lot different. Just the way preseason is, and how much players are getting paid. Like back in 1934 when they started this, 1937, whatever it was. Another reason they had the preseason was so they could get paid a little bit more money. These dudes were playing football, and they had second jobs because football was not paying what it pays today. So a reason why we really shouldn't have preseason today is these athletes are getting paid a lot of money, and that's all they're doing is they're playing football. They don't need that second job. That's part of the reason why they had the original preseason, was to help these dudes out with a little bit of money. Even then, they still had to work a second job, but today they don't even have to work second jobs. So that's another reason why preseason really isn't practical. and kind of wrap it up, like looking overall, I saw that, you know, kind of seeing it canceled wouldn't benefit as much as I would say reconstructing it in a way. I kind of came up with a couple ways, but the first main way was reducing the games, and just making sure that player safety was on top. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I figured out, is the best way to do it, because you know there's not one right way. Obviously, there's not one right way for anything. So, getting those people who support the preseason and who are kind of against the preseason to kind of meet in the middle, really helps. You know, come up with a solution to this problem.